So you guys are in Costa Rica then?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So I've got a friend that has some property out there. I used to work with him in a different industry, and he just loves it. He's got a house out there and really enjoys it. A lot of people tell me if it ever hits the fan out here, then Costa Rica is a pretty good place to be.
Oh, yes. It's got abundance of food and water and natural resources that you could never imagine.
And there's no military, and that's where a lot of the movie stars and elite are going, and they bought a bunch of land. So we're like, well, there's probably want to be safe. That's probably a good place to go.
Yeah, I just get worried though, because if there is no military there, how easy would it be for the big beast system, the military-industrial complex, to go in there and start just do it, pillage and do whatever they want? Yet at the same time, it's kind of like that. Can't live with it, can't live without it. But I certainly would rather be in a society where I didn't have to worry about Big Brother knocking on my door. So I really
No,
applaud what you
Yeah.
guys are doing.
unfortunately, Rex, this is Marguerite, and to some extent, they've already moved in as far as policing here, right? They've really increased the amount of police presence here through United States and China backing.
Okay.
They move in financially instead of militarily. Yeah.
But they have
Right.
funded a lot of different police activity where it used to be like Barney Fife here. I've been here 17 years. In fact, I haven't been to the United States in 14 years.
Bonnie Fife, that was
Sorry.
good.
Do you miss it?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I don't blame
I
you.
only see what I see, so to miss what I see is like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Miss maybe some of the conveniences that I used to think of, but really not. I mean, people ask me, what do you want us to bring back? And I'm like, oh, black licorice. Because, I never really think of anything to miss from there anymore.
Sure, sure. The landscaping out in many places out here is just phenomenal that you won't get in Costa Rica if you're into the high desert places like Moab and Four Corners and stuff. But yeah, the tropical sensation of Costa Rica is just. I certainly wouldn't miss the archetype of the 9 to 5 hustle bustle, keep up with the Joneses, buy more plastic stuff archetype here.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I like
what's that?
Lake Tahoe. I
Yeah.
lived in Lake Tahoe for 11 years before I moved to Costa Rica. So I was always been exposed to, and then Laguna Beach before that. So I've always had beautiful nature around me. It's just that when the changes came really politically, the Bushes staying in and the whole thing, it was like, I know this is not a desirable place.
Right.
Now it's much different here those many years ago as it is now. I mean, I lived 8 years without a phone line, without internet or anything. I still, in all these years, have not really, well, by far. You can ask my friends.
Sure.
But we have a lot going on here and a lot of things directed towards industry in a way, but in a manner of real prepping. Is what I consider real prepping is to actually be prepared, not so much with food buried,
Right.
but unless it's growing, right? Unless it's growing. So
Right.
I know we have some advantages here, but I don't know where you want to take us with this. We got a lot of things that we do here, so I'm going to kind of leave you to dive around with us. And
Great. Now, I want to make sure I pronounce your name right.
Marguerite,
Marguerite. Okay, fantastic.
like margarita, right? Like
Yeah.
margarita.
I love it. I interviewed Betty Martini the other day, and that was pretty cool. So, real nice gal. She's a firecracker. She got pushing that aspartame danger because they just
Oh, I
love to
did
put
see
these
her.
poisons out here in the corporatocracy world, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, our
Well-
friend was killing ants down here with aspartame. Pure aspartame, put it out, kills the ants.
That's what she said. Wow.
It
Yeah.
works.
So you just
Yeah.
backed up what she said. It's amazing that if we're just going to go with this because typically I do an intro, but I feel that what we've been talking about so far is going to have some great dialect and people should listen to. So let's just segue in. I'm going to do a quick intro on what you guys are doing out there in Costa Rica. Now, Planting Positively is a new sovereign social network startup created by a team of humanitarians in Costa Rica for the benefit of the people. The bloggers are Margurite, who uses her last 30 years of life experience as a human doing extensive study to remember us as souls and what we are doing here. Marguerite's platform is Thrivalism, a new paradigm in survivalism by realizing or remembering our true spiritual sovereignty. This finally allows us to become truly free of the archonic system. First, within our own conditioning, to undo all forms of fear and feeling weak, uncertain, and disempowered, which leads us to also become free from the worldly forms that seem to threaten us. Living from our inner sovereignty naturally leads us to Thrivalism. We live and give from our own wholeness, integrity, and as a contribution to all beings. on our earth. Check out plantingpositively.com. The other bloggers on plantingpositively.com are Nico and Zika with 2 E's. Sovereignty and law, providing people with common law pure trusts and sovereign community protections. This is great, you guys. We talk about a lot of doom and gloom here on the Leak Project, and oftentimes I'm looking for these solutions and ways to be the change that you want to see. And you guys are certainly doing that. You guys are being the change you want to see. Tell us a bit about what's going on out there right now, and thank you so much for joining us here at the Leak Project.
And setting up this computer system where we still got to go back, and on the back end we're kind of lagging. But we're pretty much trying to make a sovereign social network where we can talk about things, and nothing is off limits to talk about, because things are bad. Things are ridiculously bad. But there's also hope. I mean, to think that there's no hope is just ridiculous. And it gives up, gives up all your power. So our whole thing is to create a platform where we can talk about things and create solutions. And one of our biggest things is to learn about, law and how it's actually going to protect us. So everybody's really upset about the government and this, oppression and all this stuff. But really, we're like, well, why don't you guys reclaim the power, or stop learning all of their stupid laws and make your own? Or, because there's treaties. So the world can go with treaties and completely respect that. And so what we've learned over years and years of study is that as human beings, we are ordained sovereign at birth, and that what you can do is you can actually enact your sovereignty into a document which it will be certified. And once you are certified, enacted sovereign, you can do all kinds of things, such as create your own societies, and these societies are recognized, and then you create your own laws. So the sovereign decrees law, that's what we're all about. And then it has a lot to do with reclaiming the land held in alloidium, which is because the reason why that's important is because everyone's got a deed, and a deed is a color of a title. It is not a real title. It is a cheap facsimile of a real title. And you want the real title, which is alloidium, and only a sovereign can hold land in alloidium. So it's important. It's important work we're doing.
And most people haven't even heard of these terms and titles that you're using. When you're a citizen of the United States and you go apply for sovereignty, you were literally put on a terrorist watch list. You were looked at as a possible domestic terrorist, and then they've got laws in play where they could instantly put you in a black van, put a hood over your head, and you could disappear, and there's nothing that you can do about it legally. So a lot of people are doing it, though. They're saying, hey, we don't care, man. We're tired of this system, and we're going to jump out. So when you're in another country like Costa Rica, what is it like out there? Have you ever gotten any flack? Because you guys are all from America, right? We're born
Yes.
here.
We can say we know all about that whole psyops to have us not reclaim our sovereignty. But when you get up if you're going to write the government a bunch of angry letters, you're going to get a bunch of anger back, because we talk about law, so law of attraction. And so what we suggest is that if you do want to write them, first of all, your sovereignty doesn't have anything to do with a corporate government. So there's not many reasons to write them. If there are reasons to write them, you write them nice letters, and you get a nice response. We got a letter from the Department of Justice. Dear friends, you claim to be sovereign, blah, blah, blah. Okay, they're not saying you're non-sovereign. So, and we don't even do that nowadays. That was a while ago. And now our new understanding is you just enact it on your own. It has nothing to do with the government.
And ostracize their system completely, to where you're not giving any energy, whether it's bad or good. You are creating your own energy in your own environment and enacting your sovereignty and being the change that you do want to see. Mm-hmm. And one step at a time, each individual people are able to reclaim their sovereignty. And when they do that, then and they ostracize the system, that's one less in their system. And it just, you can compile it like that.
Okay.
As well, Rex, from my point of view, which is I'm more of on the, I guess I would say on the spiritual side of sovereignty, because I've lived here a long time and I've been sovereign, and I'm not involved in any, unless after today, any United States, anything really. I have family there, but I don't even see them or speak to them often. But I have no ties as far as my nationality now. I have a passport for the United States, but I also have one for Costa Rica. So it frees me up from that. And I think the more direction that I go in with this for myself is the real sovereignty of knowing ourselves as to I don't know how to say that really well for you. Living a life that we actually know who we are and what we're doing here as far as our divine beings here, right? And it doesn't matter really the religious, whatever you want to call your source, right? Is relating to that source. That is who we really should be governed by if we're going to be governed, right?
Right.
Sure.
Rather than as somebody we don't vote for is actually what happens, right? It just gets appointed. I'm sure you're seeing that now this year with the elections.
Oh, it's been a staged event, in my opinion. There are a bunch of actors up there, and whether they're a Democrat or Republican, I feel that they're working for the same team at some level. So it's just a charade if you look at politics.
Oh yeah, the illusion of choice, complete showbiz. And we always say we don't have any dogs in that race. You know, I mean, why would I even consider even?
Condoning?
Here's the way we look at it is, if you're going to get yourself immersed into someone else's system, then how sovereign are you? You're not very sovereign because you have your mind taken over by some meme or virus. That's not true.
Right, like a parasitic archon almost. It's just the
That's
psychology.
exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is.
Yep.
Is an archonic system that has been run for centuries, right? When they actually abolished, I will say, stoicism or sovereignty, and it only stayed within the elites because they brought in the militaristic governments, and that was in the 2nd century, you know, and so we've just seen it progress and be exactly the same. Now we're not just slaves, we're debt slaves as well, right? We've actually grown to that, only that in the whole process, it seems as though.
Well, it's definitely a different form of slavery now. I guess if you look at, well, not even I guess, if you look at our conditions now versus maybe a slave in the 1800s, we certainly have more creature comforts like air conditioning. We can go to the grocery store and buy foods, even though most of them have some type of poison or toxin in it, you know, and
Right.
and they make some, oh, well, it's got less calories, so it'll be good for you. It's just a neurotoxin, no big deal. Even the gum out here now, I'm not joking, you guys, because you haven't been out here for some time. If you buy a pack of gum, I have not found any gum that doesn't have aspartame in it, but it also now has phenylenolonics, which is a neurotoxin, and it even has a warning label on the gum. It says this package contains phenylenolonics, but it doesn't say it's bad for you. So people look at it like, oh, is that some kind of new flavoring? That's great. Oh,
Exactly.
I'll enjoy that.
Wow.
Well, exactly. I mean, just as easy as they take medication, which is a whole other thing we could go into too with the whole medical industry, right? Big pharma.
Sure.
Uh,
So what's
here
the health
they-
like out there for you guys? I mean, you guys are living off the land. You're growing your own foods. You're
Pretty much. I mean, I started the a huge organic movement here when I came here with a couple of other gringos, I'll call us, right? Because I don't mind calling myself that. 3 of us started a huge organic movement here around, I guess, 10 years ago now. It's been maybe 11. We brought in a lot of seeds, a lot of, and got the Ticos involved. There is still a lot of conventional growth here because they sent, you know, a lot of the chemicals that they banned in the U.S. they sent down to Central America. So it's been just as much of a challenge here to educate and re-educate people on old ways of growing rather than the newer, oh, you can produce more. And now we have Monsanto even breaching the gates now, right? And so it's like, no. And they're sold. There's a big propaganda movement here in all forms of globalism. It's amazing, really. In all forms, with the pharmaceutical, with the agricultural, with voting, with police. It's definitely a big change here of how it used to be. Now you can live completely off grid here, right? And do your own thing if you choose to. Most people, there's a few people I know that actually do that to heart, but I mean, most of us aren't raised that way that are coming from the United States. We still want to have community and socialism, you know, socializing and not socialism, but socializing, and a life, you know, a life besides, especially if you're not with children or whatever, you don't have children or, so there's great community here that's involved with growing natural food, creating natural products, natural medicines, and a lot of it are going out now. It's beginning to be imported out and exported out. We have a huge new product that all of us will probably talk about that is Jim designed, and he's not here with us today. He's actually in the States right now. The Permacube Revolution, and that is on our internet page. I don't think we sent you anything specifically of that, but we'll talk more about that too if you're interested.
yeah,
It's
tell
really
us
cool
about
because-
that. That'd be great.
Well, it's all about getting all of the different systems working together. So, for instance, you know, it's warm down here. So you can put all of your food waste products into this, you know, it's a bag or a can. You can make it out of a 55-gallon drum. And you put your food waste in there with the water, and it creates anaerobic bacteria because there's no oxygen. So then it starts creating methane gas and starts building up. And then you can run it up through your gas line and cook with it or heat with it, do different things. There's just all these different systems in one to create water. It's got prep air water to pull the water out of the air. So people who don't have, you know, wells and things like that. We've got, you know, prolific water here, like waterfalls everywhere. We don't worry about that. But there's people who don't have water. And so, you know, or some people like in Florida can't collect water legally, although they could lawfully. But that's beside the point.
Right, now you're talking about the different types of laws. I interviewed a guy a while back. He calls himself Wind Farm, I think is the name of his channel. And great guy. And he says there's two classes of people in America. There's literally the slave corporate citizen class. And then there's another one. I can't remember the term that he used. But he said there are literally two different subsets of people if you look at the laws and whether you call them strawmen or whatever. I mean, just stuff that's in play. That's fact, he says.
Oh, it's absolutely fact. They recognize it as well. In fact, even that term straw man, you'll have the FBI say, oh, and then these people think there's a straw man. Okay, I open up a legal dictionary and it says straw man is the representative of somebody else. Okay, monetize your birth certificate when you're born. Your mother is on the birth certificate as an informant. So you look up informant. Well, what's an informant? An informant is somebody with a civil claim against you for having done them wrong. And then, like on my birth certificate, it says city corporate. Where was I born in city corporate limits? So then they've got you birthed. You're taking the maiden voyage with your maiden mother because everything is trust law. So all the countries are ran based on the controlling trusts, and then you've got the main countries which are trusts, and then they're created into corporations which are held in trust, and they own that straw man. They made a corporate fiction, and then they monetize that corporate fiction based on the fact that you're going to pay taxes, get a marriage license, pay parking fines, a bunch of stupid, ridiculous fines that shouldn't have anything to do with a man unless you harm somebody. So there's definitely two forms of law and two forms of people. So there's the people, and like Chisholm versus Georgia and a bunch of different court cases in America, they all say that the people are sovereign. So if you notice the Constitution, it says, we the people created the Constitution, and then it goes down, and then the Constitution creates the government, and then the government creates the citizen. So the citizen and the people are two different things. See that? A child could figure that out,
That's a good way to break it down, absolutely.
Isn't it?
Here's the deal. A lot of people in today's society, really with so much that they have on their plate, plus the ADD kicks in. I mean, I've definitely myself, I've multitasked like you wouldn't believe. But regardless, it seems as if most people don't have even the thought process to get into this kind of information. And if they do, well, oh my gosh, there's an episode of Naked and Afraid on later, or my favorite football team's on. So there's all these little things that people are doing instead of going to the meat of often the source.
I saw a lot of this, Rex, when I started looking into preppers and wanting to help them with the food situation. I'm like, I just can't believe that packaged food would be the way to go. If I understand if it's a disaster to the point, yeah, we should have some of that put away. But even with the permit cube, we have a drying unit, right? So you can dry foods and put them away yourself and do your own canning. And know you're eating organically, right? Because now food is so poisoned. But anyways, they...
oh, right. I mean, even if the food's organic, the packages that they put it in has got biphenol or something like that and all sorts of other stuff.
Yeah, that was leading into I don't remember, I haven't lived in that atmosphere. I'm only seeing it really come in here in the last 5 to 8 years, heavy duty, where we have more packaged foods here and stuff. I mean, a grocery store here used to be able to find like 4 kinds of cookies, 4 kinds of crackers, 2 kinds of milk. I mean, now the grocery stores look like they did in the United States, but not living in that environment for so many years now for myself, even when I go out with tourists or I do things, I forget how different it really is, because I really live like a Costa Rican campesino in some respects, much more than I do as I was the top line hairdresser for Bumble and Bumble out of New York City when I lived in the United States, right? So it's a completely different world that when you remind me of it, it's like, oh yeah, those people are really dumbed down. I forget about that. And even myself, though, having done a lot of spiritual work, I'm very mellow. I'm almost not as quick sometimes to think of things to say and quickly, because I'm like, okay, I'm thinking this through. What is it? How does it look? What does it feel like? But the spiritual end of the sovereignty, I think the emotional intelligence, people don't, I'm not going to say just in the United States, because I find it's very around the world and it's here as well. Nobody takes the time to really look inside themselves anymore to see how we can be of service to one another, how we create a sovereign community, how people can benefit each other. Like, I can make the corn and you can, I'll grow the corn, you make the tortillas, or however it works. I don't think there's even that sense in people. The internet has brought that in a little bit, but I really don't see that there's that sense of people unless there's the people that, like yourself, and others that are on the internet trying to create that, right?
There
it's
is
either
no
a loss. I'm sorry?
What'd you say?
It was just a joke. I said there is no try and do. It's a Yoda saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
There is no try and do.
Well, and you bring up some good points. And let me ask you, what is it like living in that community out there? Walk us through a typical day for you guys.
I'll let you
It's
two go
12,
first.
12 here, so it's light at about 5:45 in the morning, and it starts getting dark about 5:45, 6 p.m. So that's a little different. That's trippy.
Yeah.
And then you get up, and then there's a bunch of birds, toucans and birds, and sometimes some places there's monkeys and huge snakes. We don't live where there's too huge of snakes. That's more down south. But
Oh, yes, you do.
there's,
shouldn't have
I
told
haven't-
people about
too many
snakes.
I'm trying to avoid those guys. I did see an 8-foot one when we first got here. I'm like, oh my God.
Typically, we just as the day goes on, you see all these wonderful animals. It's fresh air. There's no chemtrails as far as I can see.
None.
There's not a single one in the sky that I've seen here where we are. They do say that they're here in Costa Rica, though.
Actually, I have
San
seen
Jose.
them above.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't.
Wow,
Yeah.
that must be nice to not have to look up and see those checkerboard patterns
Oh,
and all
yes.
those
No, I did.
articulates.
It's so great.
Oh, it's
so
great.
They say pura vida here, so that means
Pura
pure,
vida.
pure life. That's their saying. Like, hey, how's it going? That's just what they say. Pure life. Yeah, it's wonderful. Yep. And then you'll just see all kinds of people going by with their horses, or a lot of motorcycles because they don't have the gas money. People make $2 an hour here, so they're the happiest country on earth every year, making $2 an hour. So that just goes to show how United States corporation has their priorities completely off kilter. These people aren't in it for the money. They're in it for their family. All lives in the same community. Grandma's next door. They get to eat, empanadas together, and they bond on the things that are real. And when we first got here, we were like, that's how it's supposed to be. Oh my God.
They actually do. They live with compassion and respect for one another's rights.
Yep.
They cultivate right thinking amongst each other.
They ride
they-
their horses.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you don't. I mean, this is changing somewhat. I mean, again, from coming in for a long time here, you see a lot of the college-age children now are starting to definitely go into the direction of Americans, right? Because they're just pushed that way. They have no really choice. It's a little bit frightening because there's not a lot of people taking the places of the older men and women that work the fields here, right?
Good point.
And do a lot of the growing. As well as nature's changed with property and people buying, and it is a beautiful place to retire. It is a beautiful place to get away, right? So there's still a large community of people that come here. I won't say that they're not awake at all, and as far as what we would consider to be awakened, but they're retired here and they live nice lives. They can actually live on their pensions, what they can't do in the United States, right? So you have a big community of expats as well. My daily thing is, I don't do internet at home, so I come into town every day to do internet and mingle and do my thing. I have a lot of business, smaller businesses connected to one another. Hell, I say come here and check it out, man, because it's like you're only in Texas, you're not that far away, right?
It's 2 hours from Florida.
So how long would it take somebody to really build their own little nest egg out there? If someone was to actually do this and take advantage of the opportunity, what would they need to do to be an integral part of the community?
It depends on what kind of community you want. One thing you can go, we have communitytrust.com, and that's COMEUNITY trust.com. And it's a humanitarian project where a bunch of different communities have gotten together down here. There's land, where people can join in on work trade, join in as investors, create profit sharing, create their own economies, take back, hold it in alloidium, held in trusts. And so that's one thing. So there's plenty of opportunities to get in on the ground floor. Like Margurite has one here that's $30,000 with a container home on it for a bug out package. There's plenty of opportunities here on low budgets, high budgets. It just depends on what you want, for sure. I mean, there's raw vegan communities. There's there's just so many. It really depends on what you want. But it's all here. If anybody wants to know anything, just get a hold of us at communitytrust or plantingpositivity.com. And we'll talk to you about it all.
Yeah,
There's all kinds of stuff.
The system itself in the United States lends the idea to me that people would like to come here. I think there is a definite wave now of the kind of the crushing wave of the world government system with the Brexit and things that are going on. There's a huge need for people to break away from those systems. Although it's scary, right? It's really scary to let go of all of that because I'm talking bank accounts. I'm talking about, like, I've lived here for 17 years. I don't receive a check from anybody, right? I make what I make. And whether that's growing food, cutting hair, doing whatever it is I do, I don't rely on any system. I don't have a retirement plan. I mean, I blow people away by almost like, you're crazy, Marguerite. What are you doing? You can't do this. And I'm like, I am doing it. I've been doing it, right? So it can't be that I can't do it because I am doing it. And I've been doing it many years. I own my property. And those are some benefits that I did bring with me, I guess, that I was able to save a little money. Although I came here at 30-something years old, so, you know, I came here very young. It's not simple to make a living here as far as, I always say if you want to make $1 million in Costa Rica, bring two.
Right. Okay.
Because you do go through some bureaucratic things in that way.
You can shun some of that bureaucracy
Right.
as well.
Yeah,
Bureaucrat.
I mean, I would love to say that really where I'm thinking is that people can do this in the United States as well. And I know that I may not know what I'm saying there because I haven't been there for so long. But on a spiritual level, yes, you can recognize who and what you are and how much of the system that you need to participate in order to be sovereign or to be at least aware of the fact that you're not ruled or governed by some man in a suit, right? That's making decisions for you, your life.
Yep.
Period.
Yeah, one of the reasons why it's super important to have your land held in allodium or with your allodial title is, you know, they've got these agendas. So, you know, you got Agenda 21, you got Codex Alimentarius, which we just keys, and we pulled it up and we said, oh my gosh, it says Codex Alimentarius right on the key. They finally started announcing it. But anyway.
What does that mean exactly?
Codex Alimentarius is where they want to come out and tell you, you know, chamomile is totally dangerous, but then they've got all these toxins that are completely fine. It's not good. It is a complete slavery of food choice. You don't even have a food choice with it if they get their way with it. So the point is, when you own your land in allodium and held it in a trust, those laws are applicable in their society, but not in yours. And so there's a lot of treaties that every country signs that says you have the right to organize, you know, workers or employers or your own, simply your own constitution, your own federation, confederation, whatever you want, and you make your own rules. And it literally says the public officials shall not interfere with your rules. So we always just say, well, then make treaties.
And that's the difference.
Think about it.
That's the difference between going into private law and public law.
Yep.
And when you keep it private and you're going by these treaties and these laws within your trust, and you hold your land in allodium, and I mean it's kind of like a land trust, but the trusts that we're working with kind of trump land trusts because those are all statutory trusts. But when you have these things in place, you have the ultimate protection because I mean you're going by treaties and real private law, and you're not bringing it to the public.
Which is totally inferior.
Which public law is inferior.
Yep.
Now, you're bringing up some real powerful stuff here. There was a few months ago where a town in South Dakota, very small, but it had its own post office, a little bar pub, and a couple of houses. The entire township was for sale for about $250,000. I'm thinking to myself, you know, if I had $250,000 right now, this would be a pretty cool investment because you could pick that up. And then I'm thinking of a way to what you guys are talking about almost, maybe incorporate it into its own trust system, become completely sovereign in a sense to where you could have your own foundation there. Would that be possible though?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It really helps to have land to back it, you know, and have that allodial title, because then you're the king or queen of your little realm, right? Which I mean, you could be the king or queen of your own body, but having land is so much more powerful. You put food on it and all kinds of stuff. But you could create your own. I thought South Dakota has their own money system now as well. That they were doing some fancy money creation as sovereigns. You know, which is totally possible.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't hear about that on the mainstream news or even on
I heard about it a few years ago that they were. I thought they were getting pretty successful with it. It was being kind of widely used in their communities. So that's always an option. You know, there's actually a class next month. It's on Cumbria University is putting it out, and it's got one of the guys from the IMF and one of the guys from the World Bank. And they kind of defected from there. They said, this is ridiculous. This place sucks. And they said, you know, that we should be making sovereign money. This is absurd. And they were really meaning the Queen, which, I mean, I don't know why anybody couldn't be just doing their own sovereign money. But they were saying, so they have a class on how to create your own money, and it comes up next month. So you can go look up on Cumbria and start taking that class. It's free. You get 4 weeks and learn how to do your own blockchain technology and sovereign money creation, which I think is totally interesting.
Yeah, actually, I do remember a few years ago that there was a couple of news articles talking about how sovereign money was picking up steam, but I don't remember, or steam, I don't remember it saying South Dakota, but yeah, that's very interesting. Now, South Dakota in and of itself is one of the states, the last states to incorporate in the Union. I mean, there's some neat history about that location. But regardless, now, so when we get into these trusts, let's talk about this stuff because this is just great. Have you both, or all three of you, been very well educated in these fields? I mean, how did you get this information?
Oh, just years of you know,
Compiling
and seeking, and you know,
Definitely, I can say that.
When the student's ready, the teacher appears and just learning and learning and learning.
And learning from old school sovereigns too, that created this foundation and brought us a lot of the teachings and education and the hard work that they had to go through to pass the information along. So it's not like we're making this up or, we started this or something. We get our information from history itself and education from the knowledgeable who have done it for many years.
Yep, and it's undeniable that all the countries are ran on trusts. So if you go to our soulreign.com, that's SOULREIGN.com, and that means because the soul reigns in the body, and that's what a sovereign is. Sovereign means soul reign. So if you go to soulreign.com, on there's a page called Useful Information, and it's got one of the top trust lawyers in the world talking about how you need a trust and how the world works based on the trust. And everybody thinks a lot of these quality families, these rich families are, and I'm not going to say, oh my God, that they're not completely evil, but they're not all evil in those families. They're people. And what happened is that a lot of those
Maybe, that's debatable.
Well, that can be debatable.
Shapeshifters.
But the point is that those trusts have the provisions in them to make everything a republic. And if we didn't have those trusts in place, the honest to God truth is that we'd all be in not just a democracy where 51% of the people could take away the rights of 49% of the people, which isn't good either.
Right.
Because to the republic for which it stands, and now we're talking about a democracy corporation. Now I'm talking about a republic. And what does republic mean? It means the sovereignty of the people is exercised directly or through your representatives. So I want to be in a republic where my sovereignty matters and my rights matter. My rights end where yours begin in a republic. Democracy is just smash you down. Dictatorship's going to smash you down. So we want the republics. I don't have a problem with the world being held into trusts. You see what I mean? As long as they say that the people are above government, and they do. That's why those people are sitting in their Bernanke, sitting in the Federal Reserve, flipping people off and smirking, because he knows that he's hiding behind a trust. Now, I'm not saying that that's a good thing. If you're using it for nefarious reasons, it's not good. But if you use this for a noble cause in honor, see, they're in dishonor. Because they actually stole the trust. So the Federal Reserve is an eleemosynary trust, which means it's charitable. And the people are actually the beneficiaries. Well, I don't see the trickle down myself.
Yeah.
I see somebody sitting on the stand flipping you off. But the point is jurisdiction. He's sitting there flipping Congress off and smirking because they didn't have the jurisdiction to enter into his private trust because they were public. And so it's very important for us to understand these tools if we expect to do anything good in our own dang lives.
So the foundation of the republics from these trusts, which most governments are set up with in the entire world, are created, and we as people have accidentally left the republic that was created and is now working within a corporation democracy.
Yep.
So the republic is still there for which it stands.
And if you're going to go vote in their,
if you're going to go vote in their corporation,
showbiz, yeah.
in their show business, and make them all the money and stuff, of course you're going to be the little person, and your rights are going to be under a democracy, and the major vote overrules the minor vote, and we all just left the republic.
Yep. And then there's a difference between civil rights and natural rights. So civil rights mean rights that the government can give to you and take away. And then your natural rights are all the ones that you have. It's everything.
Granted by your creator or wherever you came from.
Yeah. Yeah, and that pyramid we talked about earlier, the people created the government, we forgot the best part. It's really the creator makes the people, and I don't care if you're religious or not. It says there, okay, God is sovereign, and I don't care if God is the universe. What we're saying is that there's a universal entity, the source energy, whatever you want to call it, and it has a laws. It decreed laws. And
the universal law, right?
We're
Right.
on our realm having
Right.
to obey the higher laws, but on our realm, we create our own laws. And so that's very important to understand. Yeah.
I mean, if we were working from a spiritual point towards sovereignty, we would be using our creator or our source to make sure that it is so simple as the golden rule, right? We would be doing unto others as we would have them do unto us. We're so far removed from all of that I don't know that anything more than a complete takedown would ever get us back to anywhere near that, or even an advanced form of it. There are a lot of people that are waking up to the fact that we are energy, and how much power we have in our thoughts, and the will against this, what I consider as well to be a parasitic archonic, completely, as the Gnostics put it, archons, right? They're really an evil entity, and they really don't, they have no. I disagree a little with Zika on that there isn't too many of them, if they're in there, that I've ever been able to witness through any kind of study of my own, that were very, although I can't say that. Marcus Aurelius was a 2nd century emperor who did probably some of the best sovereign and stoic work ever in meditations and writings. He's up there with But I did get a kick out of what she was talking about with this, because I happened to go in to look for something the other day on Stoicism and sovereignty, and I was looking under Marcus Aurelius, and I wanted to go into an Eckhart Tolle video, right? And I could not go in there without a credit card. And so my next article is going to be like, how to get spiritual without a credit card.
Wow.
Because I was like, wow, I can't even go in there without a credit card, you know? And so for me, that's big, because I don't use these systems that are in place in the United States for many years now. And so it's all relative to what you're used to, I guess, right?
Sure. And let me jump in for a minute, because you brought up the Gnostic texts, and I'm fascinated with many of the original books that were put in there, or that they discovered, the Nag Hammadi treaties and such. So when you read the book, The Secret Book of John, it talks about these archons and has a completely different spin on what the Abrahamic Old Testament talks about in Genesis, but it has the same players in there. So do you feel that the archons that are talked about in the Gnostic texts are actually maybe controlling and influencing those global leaders and bloodlines, and have for maybe thousands of years? And what do you think they actually are? I mean, you can read this stuff in the Gnostic text, but if you were to say to the layman, or just somebody that's even very intelligent in that specific subject, how would you describe the archons?
Well, I would definitely agree with you on the fact that, and in my own, that they are a parasitic energy form, right? And whether they come into us probably through space, I mean, because that's where we all come from, really, as a source. I mean, whatever our spark, we're a spark of the one divine source, I hope. Whatever else is out there amongst the source that created us, that wanted to create love, and some playmate possibly, right? Also there's other sources out there that were creating other things. I don't know. I mean, I'm being broad here with that.
Sure.
To lay down an actual concrete. We know that the Bible gets changed. So to try to compare, for me, to try to compare to what is in the Bible, which is why I find harmful with religions, or let's say not harmful, let's say stopping, right? People never really do discover their own divine within, because they don't go past the big, bad, mean God, right? I mean, they have that first Testament feeling that we have this God that you better prove yourself to and go through these gates for, and do, all these judgments that
Right.
were evidently written by the same archonic people that were writing before and are still writing, and now they're changing it again, and then another interesting point watching it in this country, which is highly Catholic, to see that they're changing the Bible, right? And the Catholics aren't even sure what they're doing. It's so under the blanket, if you will.
Well, I think the Catholics changed it in the first place. So
Yeah,
you had
the
Irenaeus.
original one.
Yeah, you had Irenaeus, and we always call him Erroneous. And he was like, the four corners of the world, and the four ways the wind blows, and the four this and the four that. And he said Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And then he threw out everything cool in those that ended up later in the Nag Hammadi, and what else are we missing, right? And so then in that Bible, the new one, you've got it written by King James, and he wrote the book of demonology. So I mean, that's not very good, right? It's a flesh-bound book written by this guy who wrote the book of demonology. Anyway, so in there you notice that in the beginning you've got God and then you've got Lord. And they're two different stories. One story says, oh, God says, take Noah, take them 2 by 2. And then the next story says, Lord says, hey, take them 7 by 7, right? These are two different stories. So I mean, I don't know, a child could see that. It's on the few pages in, it's not even very long in there. But in the Gnostic books, it's very interesting because they have Yaldabaoth, and Yaldabaoth is the god of this world.
The King Archon, correct?
That what?
The King Archon.
Yeah, well, yeah, he's the total narcissist, hidden in the clouds, thinks he made everything. He didn't make everything. The breath of life is supposed to come to him, but they tricked him. The god said, breathe the breath of life into the man, because he was trying to create man and it wasn't working. So they snuck in and breathed the breath of life, God power, into man without him. And the whole story is psychology. So really what we need to understand is that these archons are ourselves. A lot of it has to do with your own fears, your ego, because, envy, greed, all of the traits that Yaldabaoth has. Well, he's the god of this world. He's not the good god. You know what I mean? And he just displays every trait of a psychopath, really. if you look up a psychopath,
which
and then you look up the god,
Yeah.
but the story is actually meant for us to understand that we've got a devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other shoulder. And Christ consciousness that they try to teach us is to have a pure, you are in touch with your true self. So that's very important to understand that archons there are entities, but most of the stories are meant for us to get in touch with ourself. To excommunicate it all, to shun anything that doesn't suit us.
And then that also depends on where we are in the matrix and our frequency levels. And I mean, there's so much, right, Rex? I mean, there's so much a
It's
wide
amazing.
range of who and what we are here is to define one particular belief, philosophy, I think is really hard as well because it's constantly shifting, which I think we're in a huge area of shift right now. I mean, our planets are shifting. The whole solar system is shifting. That's another thing fun that one day you and I will have to talk about too, because I've done a lot of Nibiru study and a lot of Anunnaki work here as well. And I've seen some great things from here, and I don't have any record of it because I don't have the tech side of me like developed here.
That's fantastic. So you've actually seen things that you feel could be Anunnaki stuff?
Well, I don't know about Anunnaki. I know that the spheres here are incredibly, I don't know if you've heard of the spheres.
I have very little. Could you tell
Yeah,
us
the
more about
stone
it?
spheres. I wish we had some pictures of those. I'll have to send them on to you. Those tie right into the pyramids now. They're finding out that there's actually a tie into those in somebody help me with this, in the geographical
The ley
lineup.
lines,
It's the ley lines and the planetarial lineups, and so they're tying that into this area as well, as they already have through pyramids and stuff in Mayan culture and stuff, but they're actually tying it into Costa Rica as well with just the stone. I haven't really seen anything that's Anunnaki here. That I will say that I've seen planets here, and I've seen movement in the sky that is not normal, right?
Well, that's one thing I was going to talk to you about, because if there are no chemtrails in that area, you're going to have a much different view of the sun and the stars, the constellations. And I am so neutral on the subject of Planet X now. 1 minute I'll think, yeah, well, I mean, there's a good chance, and the next, like, nah, it's a psyop. So I'm doing my best to stay as neutral as possible, even though I've seen some amazing photographs. And Planet X on that specific subject gets trolled more than any other topic we hit at the Leap Project. And we talk about everything from whistleblowers, current events, conspiracies, false flags, dangers in big pharma, and you name it. And it seems like this Planet X thing gets hit up with more trolls than any of them, and not just your typical basement dweller that's like, whoa, I'm going to make some filthy.
Yeah.
You're talking people that are very well educated in psychology, know what to say, when to say it, how to hit certain keywords, and just to trigger people. And I kind of sit back and watch these guys sometimes, and I know what they're doing. Yet, so I'm wondering, hey, maybe there is a chance of Planet X being there, and maybe it's always been there. And the Anunnaki, if that storyline is legit, well, hey, they're going to do their best to keep that planet hidden. And maybe they bring up this 4-year doom cycle of, oh, here comes Planet X every 4 years to steer people away in elections and stuff like that, wag the dog scenario. So I'm still very neutral on the subject, but I feel if Planet X is there, and if it has this 3,600-year orbit or whatever, the technology or maybe source or space or whatever has caused that planet to be able to still orbit the way that it does without causing complete chaos on Earth, maybe the way that it happened before when there was the Great Flood, etc. That's kind of where I'm going with my thought process on that. So
I kind of relate to you really well on that. I mean, I definitely believe that and we are going to see a lot more of it in the coming years, soon, like now, because I can see dual sunsets easily now, like probably a week out of the month on different days. You can see 2 different sunsets here over the Pacific.
do you have a camera?
I do, and I've never used it for that purpose, but I'm going to. I know people are like, "Come on, Marguerite, you got to," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know how to do it, you guys. I'm lame, Rex."
You're an
lame
old
on the
soul in a
computer.
new world.
And I lived here 17 years. The only thing I ever did on the computer up until this last January was YouTube, articles, and reading. Right? I didn't even know how to cut and paste. Ouch! Right?
We did have to teach you how to cut and paste.
You can write up trusts and change communities. I'm sure you could figure it out if you wanted to.
Right. Well, I don't know though. That's the thing. Like, I'm like, oh no, I'd rather be out in the dirt. you
Right.
know?
Right. That's cool. So with that said, though, it would be amazing if you guys could maybe find a little bit of time to get some footage. If you send it in to us here at the Leap Project, not only could we get it out to hundreds of thousands of people, but we could also promote what you're doing, because I'd be more than happy to put titles on there saying, this came from such and such at this time, at this place. Check out the plant project, or, what you guys are doing, such as the consultations. Yeah.
Thanks.
Hey, I had a question for you, Rex. Why do you think there's so much trolling other than, like you said, it's so dual, there's so much duality around the Nibiru thing. I'm curious as to your opinion of why. Does the government not want us to know? So I hear that you're saying that, yeah, but it's the one or the other. So
they want us to know, in my opinion. They definitely want us to know, and they also want us to think that we're crazy for knowing, and they're wanting us to think that, oh, okay, well, if I'm thinking that Planet X is real, then I'm just a conspiracy theorist, and all these other guys are following down the rabbit hole as well. So, in my opinion, it's just a full psyop where You look at a lot of stuff
is-
that happens in the news, right? Where they'll tell you it's happening, but then they'll say it isn't. They'll come out in mainstream articles and say it's there, and then they'll say, oh, it's not there. So it's just a complete slap in the face.
It is really what it is. And so to me, that signifies living here as long as I have away from all of that, that it is out there and it is. And we're going to start seeing a lot more of it because we have moved as a planet and a solar system and a sun. We've moved, right? We're in a different frequency than we used to be. They've proven that. We're in a proton belt, something different, blah, blah, blah. We're in a different place than we used to be. And so we are going to see more planetary anomalies, whatever words they want to use for that, right? And they will.
Gas.
They'll make us right. They'll make it out to be like we're conspiracy theorists. But you know what? Those same people are eating GMO. They're taking drugs that completely poison them. They're taking cancer treatments that give them cancer, for goodness sakes, right? I mean, those same people that are call us conspiracy theorists, you know, which is also a CIA word. So it's like, oh my gosh, you know, it's like, where does it? I don't know what the waking up will be if we just divide off into another Earth. Might be a good thing, right? I mean, if there's a two Earth, there's that picture as well, that we've already got two Earths going, you know, and that we can skip between dimensions.
Well, I'm a skeptic, so I think everything's a conspiracy. Even the conspiracies are a conspiracy. You never know what is a psyops. That's where I'm at.
And that's a good way to look at things. Be agnostic as much as possible. I used to be the guy that knew everything, I thought. Or not everything, but I thought, yeah, okay, that's what's going on in the world. This conspiracy is legit. And now I'm to the point I've heard everything under the sun. So I'm neutral. I mean, obviously I get passionate about when I hear about vaccines and babies getting brain damage. And you look at the people out there now versus 50 years ago, just the overall archetype of America and the world. And in my opinion, it's kind of sad. It really is. But at the same time, there's those gems of brilliance, folks like yourselves and other people that I've interviewed on here that are way ahead of the curve, just at the advanced level spiritually and mentally are off the charts. So it's great to find those moments, because if we can be on that other side and actually embrace the madness and get through it and become stronger because of it, this is like a boot camp. So
Yep, we got to do something. We got to reclaim our power. For years it's just been given away. I mean, thousands of years, and beaten out of us. But we live in a contracts world. We live in a contracts law society now. So there's no real reason to fear so much military might. One of the things we always say is, well, think about in the Holocaust. They were going around, papers, please, papers. I want to see your papers. Well, why did they want the papers? They want to know your status. So that's why we say, get your trust in order. You want your paperwork. You know what I mean? The pen is mightier than the sword. We at least got to believe it, because they could do whatever they want with their guns, sure. But it's your one fighting chance is to know the law. I mean, we really believe that.
What's gun control like out there?
What gun control? Do they have gun control here?
They actually, I mean, because people do still hunt here, right, for food. So, yeah. I mean, it's my neighborhood. People have guns all over because people still hunt here for food. There is, for gringos, you have to have a residency here, and you have to do an application. You can have guns here. It's so far, I'm very pro-gun, as far as I don't think anybody should take anything from me, right? Kind of,
Awesome.
Unless I'm giving it away.
Well, the reason why there's no military here, is because when the conquistadors came in, Costa Ricans kicked their butt. And so that's one of the reasons why they wouldn't want to take away their own people's guns, because that's their military. So the people are the military.
It used to be.
It's
Still in theory, in practice, that literally is. They're not.
Well, it isn't with the governments that have bought in through the police. No, I mean, you see what a difference the police department is now.
I heard it was pretty intense here. Yeah.
But no, people are respectful of guns here. They're not afraid of them. It's not they are getting it because they are getting the propaganda from the United States now with all, and there we go on another subject, all the false flags, right?
Oh,
I don't know how you guys look at those, but those are pretty obvious.
Pretty obvious.
Oh, well, when you've got the same person in 4 different mass shootings, one time as a principal, one time as a lawyer, one time, it's like, okay,
yeah, exactly.
I wonder.
A
child,
child,
that's not the
right?
same person. You're just seeing
one
things.
child.
Parent, the SWAT team member.
Yeah. But for the Ticos themselves here, they don't see the propaganda value that some of us can see much easier because we've lived it. I see it even with the credit thing here, right? Like they didn't used to use credit cards here when I came here. You didn't use credit cards here. And now I see the same thing that kind of happened in the United States through the 80s and 90s, where people came in and so their whole thing is changing here as well. It's not perfect by any means, but none of us are, right? We're all imperfect, trying to be our best here. But I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that, so I'm going to turn that
Oh,
over.
it is inconvenient though when you go into these towns and you can't get a credit card. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like, come on.
Well, the entire society of the monetary system, the entire culture of the monetary system is changing as we speak into the digital technology, into digital unit currencies and all these different blockchain technologies and whatnot. And by switching over to that, I mean, you go to like the FBI's website and they say a person missing a finger using cash is considered a domestic terrorist. I mean, give me a break. I mean, and if they use quotes out of the Bible is what they say. I mean, you're talking about a lot of people, a lot of Americans, and not only that, just all around the world. That's describing a lot of my grandfather was missing fingers. He used cash all the time, quoted the Bible, but he wasn't any kind of domestic terrorist, you know. So with the whole changing of the economy and the monetary systems and how they're pressuring us to be in these electronic digital systems, it can be difficult at times. Finding, you know, you got to get credit cards and all this stuff just to
Or you
you don't, and
Like me.
you know,
Yeah, and
and you
it's hard.
ostracize it, and then it's a little bit more difficult to get around in society today because you know you're forced to use this monetary system in ways.
Compelled benefit.
It's a compelled benefit.
Tell us more about the trusts and what's a living trust as an example. Is that good to have?
Well, you want to have a common law pure trust. So you could have a living trust. It's pretty much a living trust. You create it once and you have all of your trust provisions, and they're called the indentures. And you just write out your own rules. So we always say it like this. Okay, I'm going to give my grandkids this car and this acreage, and it has 2 houses. You know, the grandkids get the one, the parents get the other one, and there's 80 acres in the back, and nobody better cut those freaking trees. You know, those trees are going to last forever. And then what you do is you write that out, and then you put on whoever puts the stuff into the trust is the exchanger grantor. And they're the ones who the elite know are the only ones in the world who can create a sovereignty certificate. And so you better believe that the elite, you know, Queen of England, all of them have a sovereignty certificate given to them from an exchanger grantor, and that the Queen of England, when she gives out her titles of nobility, she is an exchanger grantor. And so then basically they're coming in. You have the managing directors. So you've always heard maybe like Warren Buffett or one of these rich people say, control everything and own nothing. And like before I was scratching my head, what are they talking about? It's like gibberish. It sounds like gibberish to the they call us the profane, you know, because we're uneducated. We don't know. We're ignorant about it. And they say control everything, own nothing. They mean be a managing director of your trust, and there is a trustee that is the one who does all of the banking and the paperwork, fills things out for the benefit of whoever the beneficiaries are, and then you, in order to control your own estate, you become the managing director. And so it's important to understand all that, you know.
And that the fact that we're in a contract law society, so this whole world is run under contract law, and by that it means that it's written on paper and decreed. And when it's decreed, then it becomes law, and that's part of sovereignty is the sovereign decrees law. And so they make these contracts, and when you have a trust and you're contracting and you have these safety procedures with trustees and beneficiaries, and you're not the owner, you are the manager, because there are beneficiaries who it really belongs to, and those people aren't disclosed. And when it gets to it, you should have a contract. And by having a contract in this contract law society, governments are able to recognize you. They're able to recognize what you are, who you are, and what you're coming with, you know. And so otherwise, if it's not written on paper in a 2D form, they have no clue if you're a beast of the wild, or if you belong, you know, in the tree, or if, you know, you're a motor vehicle or something, you know, they have no clue.
And there's a axiom in law, and it says similar is never the same. So if I go call myself a sovereign, that is much different than a sovereign citizen, because the FBI has defined that a sovereign citizen is a domestic terrorist. But let's say I call you a fox. That means I think you're sexy. If I call you a sly fox, that means I think you might rip me off, right? So there's 2 different terminologies here. Do you see what I'm saying? And a sovereign is recognized by the government. They don't actually have a problem with that term. They have a big thing called deterrence, where they'll say they've got a problem. They don't really have a problem with that term. And then there's one more thing about why it's a common law pure trust instead of a statutory, because statutory is, you know, you register it, you give it over to the king, now they own all of your assets in your trust. You come in from common law, and in your common law trust, you say no statutory entity can, you know, see my minutes, my paperwork. You can't look at it. I'll give you the top pages. I'm not going to give you what's in here. And that's how come the Federal Reserve was able to thwart off any looking into any of their assets or any kind of assessments of anything that they've had going on, because no statutory entity can come into a common law pure trust. So while they created a corporation, they put the corporation into a trust, and that trust supersedes everything, and all the trustees have to get together. They probably have so many trustees. I can't even imagine how many trustees they probably have. And each one of those trustees has a
Bilderberg, right?
yeah, well, they're probably all sitting in Bilderberg. Exactly. And they've all got a non-disclosure agreement saying that if anybody wants to see what's in here, they all have to agree first, and each one of them has to pay, say, $250,000 or more. So if the government wants to see their records, they're going to say, sure, I'll gladly show you anything in here, but you have to pay this fee for the non-disclosure agreement because I'm not going to pay it. And that's how they work. That's how governments work.
Without us seeing what they're doing.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. But that's how you should have your own government.
Or what about just anarchy?
Well, you could do that too.
I'm kind of for that.
Anarchy
myself
is just
because I'd rather rule
allowing
myself,
creativity to flow, right?
right? Or to,
Yeah.
to rule your own self, right? I mean, the anarchy that I get here from gringos is that I'm crazy by using that word even, right? Because that makes me against government, and it's not really. Anarchy is originally to rule oneself, right? I mean, if you go back to anarchist government, we had Wyatt Earp would come and fix things, right? We'd hire somebody
Right.
to take the bad out.
Well, isn't anarchy kind of like chaos in a way? Not to say anarchy in the streets chaos. No. I mean random choices and available opportunities in many different directions of which are not actually zinged into place. Do you see what I mean? Why the trust is like you actually decreeing your own. You're not going into anarchy with all these choices. You're saying,
Right.
This is the choice I've made, and here's my frickin' rules.
And with these trusts, it's funny because there's a lot of sovereigns that go and write the government and decree all of these declarations to them, and they're doing it privately by themselves, which is fine, but that's also considered a dictatorship. And you have all these dictators running around with one of these common law pure trusts that we have. You're having two people on site recognition creating a republic rather than a dictatorship. And once you have that certificate and these governments recognize that, then they are bound to keep you private, and you have the right to be private and maintain that.
Okay. Now, do you guys actually do these trusts for people? Do you have a service where if somebody wanted all this stuff done, that you could provide them the paperwork so they wouldn't have to do it themselves?
Oh, yeah. If you get a hold of us on soulrain.com, that's what we're doing. We're trying to make sure everybody's protected. That's the mission.
Right on.
That you're doing with the raw food farm.
Yeah. One of them's got 160 acres he's reclaiming right now. We're helping him. So he's going to be set up by next month. And there's quite a few people down here who are doing it. Most people, we've been going on the radio a lot and talking to people, and very few people are getting in touch with us. Virtually almost no one. It's like word of mouth. Friends here are taking our advice. Most people are not calling us, and I don't know what their problem is. Fear of call. We're totally accessible. Go ahead and get a hold of us because, like I said, we were gifted with this, and it's important to get it out.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience before we close out tonight?
Well, that's pretty much it. Just come over to the Planting Positivity. Anybody who actually wants to start talking with us, we want to start creating this platform. There's only a few of us on there. We just literally built it. Over the next month, it will start getting tighter. But we want to start bringing people together where we can actually start talking. And, why are we all talking on Facebook and getting watched and all this crap? We've got it on there, if you're a chemtrail denier and this and that, we're going to ban you, if you're a cop, you can't, she doesn't do Facebook, which is good.
Yeah.
We're on Facebook, but we're trying to move over. I don't actually look at it very often. But the point is we need a place.
Modified conritos in order to use our services.
Exactly. Isn't it Facebook what they used to do to look at everybody's, like a dossier on everybody, and now they don't even have to go and search through our trash cans anymore. We just tell them everywhere we are.
Yeah, exactly.
So
absolutely.
On our site we have a rule, and it says that no government agent can come onto the site, and if they were to come onto the site and change their mind and become a government agent of anywhere, then they can't say anything that they've learned there, so they take a non-disclosure agreement.
Otherwise, you can say whatever you want. We're not monitoring political correctness.
Exactly.
As well as checking the inner site. I haven't spoken as much today because I think they have a lot of, this is an important thing too, but on the spiritual side of everything, I'm really open to having a lot of people contact me through that and their journey. There's so much light to be had and so much loving energy to be had that I'm so open to people coming in for me now, because I have been like pretty hermitish I guess, over the last 17 years. Although I'm not. I mean, I know everyone, and everyone knows me here. If you come into this area, right? Out on the market of the webs, I guess. So I'm dying to say what you look like, Rex.
Yeah,
Serious.
You know, you guys are just doing a great job. I really appreciate you coming on the show. I'd recommend our listeners go to comeunitytrust.com, soulrain.com, as well as check out plantingpositivity.com. Thank you guys so much. It was great to talk to you.
We
you coming
appreciate
on the
it
show.
so much, Rex.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Rex. I hope to talk to you again.
Absolutely. We'll keep in touch. And folks, make sure to go to leakproject.com, subscribe, become a member. You'll have access to exclusive content. Sometimes we upload 3 or 4 shows a day. As a matter of fact, for the 4th of July special, we uploaded 4 shows. And a lot of this stuff is just all over the world information. So thanks for everything. Be the change you want to see. This is Rex Bear. Good night. So you guys are in Costa Rica then?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So I've got a friend that has some property out there. I used to work with him in a different industry, and he just loves it. He's got a house out there and really enjoys it. A lot of people tell me if it ever hits the fan out here, then Costa Rica is a pretty good place to be.
Oh, yes. It's got abundance of food and water and natural resources that you could never imagine.
And there's no military, and that's where a lot of the, movie stars and elite are going, and they bought a bunch of land. So we're like, well, there's probably want to be safe. That's probably a good place to go.
Yeah. I just get worried, though, because if there is no military there, how easy would it be for, the big beast system, the military-industrial complex, to go in there and start just do it, pillage and do whatever they want. Yet at the same time, it's kind of like that, can't live with it, can't live without it, but I certainly would rather be in a society where I didn't have to worry about Big Brother knocking on my door. So I really applaud what you guys are doing.
Unfortunately, Rex, this is Margurite, and to some extent, they've already moved in as far as policing here, right? They've really increased the amount of police presence here through United States and China backing.
Okay.
So,
They move in financially instead of militarily. Yeah.
but they have funded a lot of different police activity where it used to be like Barney Fife here. I've been here 17 years. In fact, I haven't been to the United States in 14 years.
Barney Fife, that was
Barney Fife.
Do you miss it?
No, I don't.
Yeah, I don't blame
I
you.
only see what I see, so to miss what I see is like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Miss maybe some of the conveniences that I used to think of, but really not. I mean, people ask me, what do you want us to bring back? And I'm like, oh, black licorice, because I never really think of anything to miss from there anymore.
Sure. The landscaping out in many places out here is just phenomenal that you won't get in Costa Rica if you're into the high desert places like Moab and Four Corners and stuff. But yeah, the tropical sensation of Costa Rica is just, I certainly wouldn't miss the archetype of the 9 to 5 hustle bustle, keep up with the Joneses, buy more plastic stuff archetype here.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I like
what's that?
Lake Tahoe. I
Yeah.
lived in Lake Tahoe for 11 years before I moved to Costa Rica. So I was always been exposed to, and then Laguna Beach before that. So I've always had beautiful nature around me. It's just that when the changes came politically, the Bushes staying in and the whole thing, it was like, I know this is not a desirable place.
Right.
Now it's much different here those many years ago as it is now. I mean, I lived 8 years without a phone line, without internet or anything. I still, in all these years, have not really, well, by far. You can ask my friends.
Sure.
But we have a lot going on here and a lot of things directed towards industry in a way, but in a manner of real prepping. And what I consider real prepping is to actually be prepared, not so much with food buried,
Right.
but unless it's growing, right? Unless it's growing. So I know we have some advantages here, but I don't know where you want to take us with this. We got a lot of things that we do here, so I'm going to kind of leave you to dive around with us. And
Great. Now, I want to make sure I pronounce your name right.
Margurite,
Marguerite. Okay, fantastic.
like margarita, right? Like
Yeah.
margarita.
I love it. I interviewed Betty Martini the other day, and that was pretty cool. So, she's a real nice gal. She's a firecracker. She got pushing that aspartame danger because they just
Oh,
love
I
to
did
put
see
these
her.
poisons out here in the corporatocracy world, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Well-
our friend was killing ants down here with aspartame. Pure aspartame, put it out, kills the ants.
That's what she said. Wow. Yeah.
works.
So you just backed up what she said. It's amazing that if, we're just going to go with this because typically I do an intro, but I feel that what we've been talking about so far is going to have some great dialect and people should listen to. So let's just segue in. I'm going to do a quick intro on what you guys are doing out there in Costa Rica. Now, Planting Positively is a new sovereign social network startup created by a team of humanitarians in Costa Rica for the benefit of the people. The bloggers are Margurite, who uses her last 30 years of life experience as a human doing extensive study to remember us as souls and what we are doing here. Marguerite's platform is Thrivalism, a new paradigm in survivalism by realizing or remembering our true spiritual sovereignty. This finally allows us to become truly free of the archonic system. First, within our own conditioning, to undo all forms of fear and feeling weak, uncertain, and disempowered, which leads us to also become free from the worldly forms that seem to threaten us. Living from our inner sovereignty naturally leads us to Thrivalism. We live and give from our own wholeness, integrity, and as a contribution to all beings on our earth. Check out plantingpositively.com. The other bloggers on plantingpositively.com are Nico and Zika with 2 E's. Sovereignty and law, providing people with common law pure trusts and sovereign community protections. This is great, you guys. We talk about a lot of doom and gloom here on the Leak Project, and oftentimes I'm looking for these solutions and ways to be the change that you want to see. And you guys are certainly doing that. You guys are being the change you want to see. Tell us a bit about what's going on out there right now, and thank you so much for joining us here at the Leak Project.
And setting up this computer system where we still got to go back, and on the back end we're kind of lagging. But we're pretty much trying to make a sovereign social network where we can talk about things, and nothing is off limits to talk about because things are bad. Things are ridiculously bad. But there's also hope. I mean, to think that there's no hope is just ridiculous. And it gives up, gives up all your power. So our whole thing is to create a platform where we can talk about things and create solutions. And one of our biggest things is to learn about, law and how it's actually going to protect us. So everybody's really upset about the government and this, oppression and all this stuff. But really, we're like, well, why don't you guys reclaim the power or stop learning all of their stupid laws and make your own? Or, because there's treaties. So the world can go with treaties and completely respect that. And so what we've learned over years and years of study is that as human beings, we are ordained sovereign at birth, and that what you can do is you can actually enact your sovereignty into a document which it will be certified. And once you are certified, enacted sovereign, you can do all kinds of things, such as create your own societies, and these societies are recognized, and then you create your own laws. So the sovereign decrees law, that's what we're all about. And then it has a lot to do with reclaiming the land held in alloidium, which is because the reason why that's important is because everyone's got a deed, and a deed is a color of a title. It is not a real title. It is a cheap facsimile of a real title. And you want the real title, which is alloidium, and only a sovereign can hold land in alloidium. So it's important. It's important work we're doing.
And most people haven't even heard of these terms and titles that you're using. When you're a citizen of the United States and you go apply for sovereignty, you were literally put on a terrorist watch list. You were looked at as a possible domestic terrorist, and then they've got laws in play where they could instantly put you in a black van, put a hood over your head, and you could disappear, and there's nothing that you can do about it legally. So a lot of people are doing it, though. They're saying, hey, we don't care, man. We're tired of this system, and we're going to jump out. So when you're in another country like Costa Rica, what is it like out there? Have you ever gotten any flack? Because you guys are all from America, right? We're born
Yes.
here.
We can say we know all about that whole psyops to have us not reclaim our sovereignty. But when you get up and if you're going to write the government a bunch of angry letters, you're going to get a bunch of anger back because we talk about law, so law of attraction. And so what we suggest is that if you do want to write them, first of all, your sovereignty doesn't have anything to do with a corporate government. So there's not many reasons to write them. If there are reasons to write them, you write them nice letters and you get a nice response. We got a letter from the Department of Justice. Dear friends, you claim to be sovereign, blah, blah, blah. Okay, they're not saying you're non-sovereign. So, and we don't even do that nowadays. That was a while ago. And now our new understanding is you just enact it on your own. It has nothing to do with the government.
And ostracize their system completely to where you're not giving any energy, whether it's bad or good. You are creating your own energy in your own environment and enacting your sovereignty and being the change that you do want to see. And one step at a time, each individual people are able to reclaim their sovereignty. And when they do that, then and they ostracize the system, that's one less in their system. And it just, you can compile it like that.
Okay.
As well, Rex, from my point of view, which is I'm more of on the, I guess I would say on the spiritual side of sovereignty, because I've lived here a long time and I've been sovereign, and I'm not involved in any, unless after today, any United States, anything really. I have family there, but I don't even see them or speak to them often.